There's a good chance that sometime in the last few minutes, the skin on your arms did something small and strange without consulting you. Maybe it was a draft from a window, or a particular turn in a piece of music, or nothing you could point to at all. The surface drew up. The fine hairs along your forearms stood, each one tugged upright from its root, and between them the skin gathered into that faint, pebbled texture you have felt 10,000 times and almost never actually looked at. Bring your eyes in close and you can see it. At the base of every raised hair, a tiny pucker, a little dimple in the skin, as though something underneath had pulled the hair tight like a tent line. The whole field of it lifts at once, holds for a moment, and then slowly lets go. It has happened on cold mornings, and in frightened silences, and in the swell of a song you love, and every single time your body made it the same way, in the same half-second with the same parts, and not once did you decide any of it. The thing that does this is a muscle, not a nerve or a chemical on its own, but an actual muscle, a tiny one, finer than a sewing thread, fastened at a slant to the root of a single hair, and you have one of them for very nearly every hair on your body. When the signal arrives, they contract, all together, and each one hauls its hair upright and bunches the skin where it is anchored. That is the entire event. The goosebumps on your arm are nothing grander than that. Thousands upon thousands of microscopic muscles flexing in near unison, each one doing precisely what it has always done. The only trouble is what they are lifting. Those muscles are hauling a coat of fur upright, fluffing it out away from the body, and you do not have a coat of fur. Somewhere upward of 1 million years ago, your ancestors' line let that coat thin away to almost nothing, until all that was left was the fine, pale, near-invisible down you are wearing right now. But nobody told the muscles. They kept their posts. They are here, wired and ready, firing on a cold night or at a sudden fright, heaving upward against a thick pelt that vanished before your species had a name, and finding nothing there to raise. This is one of the stranger facts about being made the way you are made. You are carrying, in your own skin, a piece of working anatomy kept in flawless order long after the need for it disappeared. And the muscle is not broken. That is the part worth dwelling on. A broken thing you could file away and forget. This is the opposite of broken, a mechanism in perfect repair, firing exactly on cue, carrying out its one small action without error, aimed the whole time at something that is no longer there. It is tempting to call a thing like that useless, and plenty of people have. But useless is a word that assumes someone, somewhere, was keeping the books, and nothing in the long history of your body ever was. Nothing ever went back through you to tidy away the parts that had stopped mattering. The living are not edited clean. They accumulate. A leftover in a body is hardly ever a mistake. It is usually just something that was never told to stop. This one has come to seem the most faithful thing in the whole body. A muscle that never got the message, still keeping watch over a coat more than 1 million years gone, still at its work tonight, in your arm, while you lie here needing nothing it has to give. A ghost of an old gesture performed in good faith to an empty room. And the part hardest to set down is this. A ghost like that, faithful and apparently pointless, turns out not to be doing quite as little as it appears. But that is the skin getting ahead of itself. One small thing first, before we follow this any further. If the slow, careful history hidden inside your own body is something you'd like more of, then subscribing really is the most useful thing you can do to keep these being made, more useful than it has any right to be. And there's a question worth leaving in the comments. When your skin does this, the hairs lifting, a chill climbing your arm over nothing at all, does it feel like you doing it, or like something far older than you, living in there and acting on its own? Those answers stay with us longer than the numbers do. So let your arm lie however it's lying. You don't need to watch it anymore. Let your shoulders come down from wherever they've drifted while you are paying attention. None of this asks anything of you. Somewhere under the skin, at the root of one particular hair, there is a single muscle finer than a thread and a single nerve reaching toward it. And almost everything we have learned about why you shiver begins there, at that one quiet junction, already firing while you do nothing but breathe and listen. Of all the quiet, automatic things your body does, gooseflesh is the one that looks most like a decision. Watch it closely, the way the skin answers a cold draft or a sudden sound by drawing itself up in the very same instant. And it is almost impossible not to read intention into it. The skin seems to notice. It seems to respond. It tightens and bristles with something that looks, for all the world, like purpose, as though a small intelligence just beneath the surface had taken stock of the situation and acted. We are, every one of us, relentless readers of intention. We find a mind behind the rustle in the grass and a motive behind the door that closes on its own, and a patch of skin that bristles at precisely the right moment is almost irresistible to that habit. The impression is worth taking seriously because it is wrong in an interesting way, and watching exactly how it is wrong is about the closest we can come to seeing the deep past work a living body in real time. There is no one beneath the surface. The thing that lifts the hair is, as you may have felt for yourself, a muscle, a minute strap of tissue set at a slant against the side of each hair's root. Anatomists call it the arrector pili, which is only Latin for the razor of the hair, and the name is the whole of its job. What matters is what kind of muscle it is. It is not the kind you are using to hold your head up, or to shift under the blankets, or to turn toward a sound. Those are skeletal muscles, the ones that answer to you, that move when you decide they should, and rest when you decide they have done enough. The arrector pili is the other kind. It is smooth muscle, the same patient, involuntary tissue that tightens along your gut, narrows your blood vessels, and draws your pupils down against a bright light. You have never once commanded a fiber of it on purpose, and you could not begin now if you set your whole mind to the task. Try it, if you like. Try to raise the hair on your own forearm by will alone, the way you would lift a finger. Almost certainly nothing happens, no lever offers itself, no inner switch, nothing your attention can take hold of. The whole arrangement is real, and it is yours, and it is simply not wired to the part of you that wants things. This is why you can neither summon it nor wave it off. The arrector pili answers to an older and faster network than the one you think with, the system that runs the body's emergencies and its slow housekeeping alike, almost wholly beneath notice. When that system registers the right kind of change at the skin, it does not check with you first. A signal runs out along nerve fibers that never pass through the place where your attention sits, and at their far ends they release a messenger chemical called noradrenaline, the body's own near twin of adrenaline. The muscle reads that chemical and shortens. The entire loop, from trigger to standing hair, closes in well under a second, faster than a decision could be reached, which is rather the point. By the time you notice the gooseflesh at all, the choice, if you still care to call it one, has already been taken somewhere you have no way into by something that has been taking it far longer than there has been a you to leave out of the room. That last claim wants one honest qualification, because it is not quite absolute. There are a few people, and physiologists have gone looking for them, precisely because they are such curiosities, who can bring on a wash of gooseflesh deliberately through some private knack of concentration that no one has fully accounted for. But they are rare enough to be written up as oddities, and the rest of us, if we are honest, could not even find the handle. For very nearly everyone alive, this belongs entirely to the part of the body that was up and running long before the part of you now listening ever arrived to take a little of the credit. Look once more at what the contraction actually does, because the shape of it carries the meaning. A hair does not rise straight from the skin, it lies on an angle, rooted on a lean like a post, set into soft ground. The little muscle is fastened at both ends, far down at the follicle and again just under the outer skin a short way off. When it shortens, it draws those two anchors toward one another. The follicle is levered upward, the hair swings up out of its lean toward standing, and where the upper anchor pulls, the skin is tugged down into that small dimple while the rim around each hair lifts into a bump. Smooth muscle works slowly and cheaply and can hold its pull without tiring, which is why the goose flesh can stand for a moment and ease off rather than flickering like a flexed thumb. Multiply the whole event across every follicle on your forearm, all drawing in at the same instant, and the surface gathers into the goose flesh you know, not a coat the skin puts on, but the summed geometry of countless tiny levers all hauling the same way at once. So the sense of intention was not nothing. It was a true reading of something pointed at the wrong cause. The response really is precise, coordinated, immediate. It really does carry itself as though it were bent on getting something done. And once, on a body wearing a deep coat, it got it done. The very same contraction that now only pebbles bare skin once stood a whole pelt of fur on end. But the precision and the need for it came apart a long time ago, and of the two, only the precision was kept. It is a little like a bell in some town still ringing out clean and on the hour across the rooftops for a shift change at works that shut their gates decades back. The bell in good order, the sound carrying just as far as it always did, calling in hands that are no longer there to come. There is nothing the matter with the bell. It rings as true as it ever rang. It is only that the thing it rang for is gone. There is something genuinely unsettling in this, once you let it land, that the body you call your own is partly out of your hands, run by older systems you never consciously meet, making small adjustments on your behalf and never once reporting back. You are not wholly in charge of the body you are resting in tonight. For now that older hand is mostly still, and the goose flesh, when it rises and falls again without costing you a thing. But something is still pulling the trigger. The muscle does not fire of its own accord. It waits for a signal, and the signal has to be sent from somewhere. And it is here that the thing turns from a matter of plumbing into a real puzzle, because the two events most apt to send it could hardly be less alike. One is nothing more than cold, the plain drop in temperature as the air moves over your skin. The other is fear, a sound in the dark you cannot place, a wave of dread that arrives ahead of any reason for it, the prickle that climbs the back of your neck when something is wrong before you have worked out what. The freezing and the frightening, two different worlds, reaching down the one same wire to the one same muscle. And why those two were ever bound together is a question older and stranger than the small muscle that answers them both. For a small, warm-blooded animal in the deep past, the night laid out its dangers on two very different clocks. One ran slow. The temperature dropped after dark, the way it always did, and a body that burned hot, that paid, hour after hour, the steep price of staying warmer than the world around it, could shed that warmth faster than it could make it, until a long enough chill became as lethal as any set of teeth. The other danger ran fast. It came on soft feet, out of the blackness, with no announcement at all, and it measured itself not in hours, but in the single second between being noticed and being caught. The slow emergency and the sudden one, losing heat and being hunted. And the body's answer to this pair of unlike threats is the thing that ought to strike us as far stranger than it does, because it met them both with one and the same alarm. That alarm is still in you, unchanged in its essentials, and running tonight. Physiologists give it an oddly mild name, the sympathetic nervous system, for what is really the body's emergency broadcast, the channel it uses to throw itself, all at once, into a state of readiness. It does not think, and it is not slow. When it fires, it sends no careful instruction to a single address. It shouts one rough message down many lines together, the same chemical word arriving everywhere at once. That word is noradrenaline, the signal we met a moment ago, and all over the body, the parts that have been listening on their own frequencies each answer in the only way they know. The heart takes the message and quickens, the pupils take it and widen, the small vessels in the skin clench down to hold warm blood deep, and the muscles at the roots of your hairs take it and pull. Behind the nerves, the adrenal glands add their own voice, pouring adrenaline into the blood to deepen the whole reaction and hold it there a while after the moment that started it has passed. This is why the cold and the fright bring up the very same goose flesh. They are the one reflex entered through two different doors. When you are cold, the broadcast runs a program for holding heat. It closes the skin's vessels to keep the warm blood deep, and it lifts the coat to trap a layer of still air against the body. When you are frightened, it runs a program for readiness. It drives the heart, widens the eyes, sends blood out to the muscles that might have to carry you away. The two programs overlap heavily, sharing many of the same outputs, and the raising of the hair is one of the things they share. The hair goes up either way because it has only the one wire coming in, and that wire neither knows nor needs to know which kind of emergency is calling. Go back far enough, and the arrangement looks less like a mix-up and more like plain good sense. Picture one of the small furred animals your line runs back through, night-living, warm-blooded, no larger than a rat, crouched in the leaf litter in the dark. The cold comes down through the hours, and its coat lifts a little with no thought behind it, each hair standing to thicken the trapped air that will hold its warmth through to morning. And then, on some other night, something large shifts close by in the blackness. A sound, a weight moving where no weight should be. And the same coat stands again in the same half-instant, this time throwing the animal's outline up larger and harder to read against whatever is out there, while the body goes still and ready beneath it. The fur rises before the animal can be said to feel anything we would call fear. In a coated body, the single response paid off twice over, and none of it had to be clever. The cold and the killer each asked the body to ready itself, and standing the coat on end was, for both, a useful thing to have done. You know the second of those programs from the inside, even if you have never had to outrun a thing in your life. It is what moves through you in the half-second after a real fright. A door slamming somewhere in a house you thought was empty, a shape at the edge of the road, a hand laid on your shoulder when you were sure you were alone. Something crawls up the nape and stands the fine hairs over your scalp, and a cool flush goes through you that owes nothing whatever to the temperature of the room. That crawl is the erector pili, the same muscle and the same pull that the cold draws out of your forearm on a winter morning. Your body, meeting a threat, reached for the oldest thing it had to hand and tried to raise a coat you have not worn in a very long time. And you felt the attempt travel up the back of your neck as a chill. And because it is one broad channel rather than a set of fine dedicated ones, it is easily fooled. The emergency broadcast does not tell clean stories. It goes off fast and hard whenever something, almost anything, pushes it far enough. So the hair stands not only for the cold and the dangerous, but for a whole crowd of things that are neither. It stands at the height of a fever when the body is anything but cold. It stands at the edge of tears, and in the strange flat lull just before bad news lands, and sometimes at nothing more than a particular memory surfacing at the wrong hour of the night. It can be set off by a touch at the base of the neck, by a fright that turns out to be nothing at all, by the body coming down off something it had been leaning on too hard. A finer system would sort these cases and answer only the ones that earned it. This one does not sort. It is ancient, and it is shared by far too many things to be precise, and for almost all of its history, the cost of that bluntness was too small to be worth the price of fixing. It is one of the quietly strange facts about being a body. We tend to hold cold and fear apart, as near opposites even, one a matter of the weather, the other a matter of the mind, and to keep them in separate rooms. The body keeps them in the same drawer. It files winter and terror together under a single heading and reaches for the same response whichever one comes up. There was no committee in there that decided this would be tidy. Nothing planned it, and nothing has gone back to draw the two apart now that one of them, the raising of fur, does almost nothing for us anymore. It is simply what you get when a living thing comes to be the only way living things ever do, not drawn up fresh for the life it is actually living, but handed down, whole, from the long line of lives that came before and pressed into whatever the present happens to ask of it. Your fear, down at the level of the skin, is a kind of weather. The one wire carries the cold front and the fright alike, and you were never given a say in either. There is one more thing about this alarm worth holding on to, because it points the way back. It is far older than the fur it learned to pull. The racing heart, the clenched vessels, the flood of readiness, all of it runs in animals that never grew a single hair, and it was already old when the first warm-blooded creatures arrived. So the wire came first, and the coat came long after, and somewhere in the vast stretch between them, a brand new thing, hair, was plugged into an alarm that had been waiting, in one form or another, for hundreds of millions of years. To understand how that happened, and why a body would come to grow a coat worth raising in the first place, we have to leave the warm dark of the present body altogether and go back to a colder world and a far smaller animal near the very beginning of warmth. The world we are going back to is colder than ours, and older than almost anything the mind reaches for easily, and the animal we have come to find is small enough to sit in a closed hand. Picture a night near the start of all this, 250 million years ago, on land that has not yet broken apart into the continents you would know. The sun goes down over a dry country, and the heat goes with it. All across that ground, the great cold-blooded animals are doing what the cold tells them to do, slowing, stiffening, settling where they stand until the warmth of morning gives them back their motion. And down in the litter beneath a fern, in the blue hour after the last light has gone, one small creature stays awake. It is no bigger than a shrew. Its heart is still going at speed, its breath still quick and even, and somewhere inside it a low fire is burning that the night cannot put out. That, and not its size or its shape, is the new thing in the world. It makes its own heat. We pass over this so lightly in ourselves that it is worth stopping on. To be warm-blooded is to keep a furnace going in the dark of your own body and to feed it every hour of your life, awake or asleep, hungry or not, and there is nothing free in it. A body that holds itself warmer than the world is a body forever leaking that warmth back into the world, because heat always runs from the high place to the low, and a living thing is, in this one respect, only a warm stone set down in the cold. The smaller the animal, the crueler the arithmetic. A little body has a great deal of surface wrapped around the small amount of inside it is trying to keep warm, and through every inch of that surface the heat pours away. Our shrew-sized forerunner paid for its inner fire in food and in breath, burning fuel at a rate that would have starved a cold-blooded animal of the same size many times over. On a mild night, the cost was bearable. On a cold one, it could run clean past what any amount of eating could cover. A warm body in a falling temperature is in a quiet race it cannot win by burning alone. And that, precisely that, is the pressure under which a coat becomes worth having. For what a coat does, before it does anything else, is slow the leak. A layer of fine covering over the skin holds a film of still air against the body, and still air is one of the best blankets there is. The warmth on its way out has to cross that dead layer first, and crosses it slowly. Nobody drew up hair for this purpose. Nothing in this story is drawn up for a purpose. But on those cold nights, the animals that happened to carry a little more covering shed their warmth a little more slowly and held out a little longer before the chill turned dangerous. And so a few more of them lived to see morning and leave young behind. Hair may not even have begun as warmth at all. Some of the earliest of it we think we can make out shows up as whiskers, fine feelers set around the face for an animal moving in the dark, reading the world by touch, where the eye was no use, covering pressed first into the service of feeling, and only later spreading back across the body into the holding of heat. Either way, the coat arrived long after the fire it would come to keep, and it arrived as an answer to the cold. It is worth being honest about how hazy the dating of all this really is, because the record here is thin and we read it sidelong. Hair does not turn to stone the way a bone does. In almost every case, it rots away long before the rock can take its shape. So the question of when our line first wore a true coat is answered not with a date, but with a window, and a soft-edged one at that. The earliest hints reach back a long way. Fine hairs found bald in the fossil droppings of some larger animal that had swallowed a furred one, perhaps 255 million years ago, though every such clue is argued over by the people who know it best. The inner fire is harder still to pin down. One careful reading of the looping canals of the inner ear places the arrival of a fully modern warmth somewhere near 233 million years ago, but that figure is contested, and warm-bloodedness in any case did not switch on in a single year. It came up slowly by degrees over a very long climb. The dates blur and may even cross. The logic does not. You cannot grow a coat worth having until you are first a body worth keeping warm, and so, whatever the rock finally settles on, the warmth was on its way first. And only now, set against that warm body and that real coat, does the small muscle we began with make any sense at all. A muscle whose whole job is to stand a hair on end is worth exactly nothing in an animal with no hair to stand, and a lifted coat is worth nothing on a body too cool to care whether its warmth stays or goes. So the muscle is the last of the three to arrive, and the least of them, a thin band of smooth fibre laid in alongside the follicle, late to a system that was already ancient by the time it got there. First, the fire. Then, across an unimaginable reach of cold nights, the coat to keep the fire in. And only afterward the muscle that could draw that coat up tighter still, the latest comer of the three, pressed onto a body that had already been warm for longer than the mind can hold. It is worth keeping that order in view because it is the whole shape of what is coming. The muscle did not call the coat into being, and the coat did not call up the muscle. Each found the other already there. You are carrying the far end of that story right now in the dark, under whatever you have pulled over yourself against the night. The warmth you can feel in your own hands is not borrowed from the room. You are making it, this second, the way that small animal made it, holding yourself a little above the temperature of the world by the same slow burning of fuel it first ran all those ages ago. The fire has not gone out once in all that time. It passed from one warm body to the next down a line that never let it gutter out, from that small creature in the Triassic cold all the way into the body lying here now, warm under your own hand. And the strangeness of that, the sense of so much time standing open beneath something as small as the heat of your own skin, is hard to hold for long. This morning, if your arm prickled in a cold doorway, you most likely thought nothing of it. Beneath that, nothing lies afire some 240 million years old, and a coat very nearly as old, and a small muscle still reaching out of the longest habit there is for both. The animal we have been imagining is a composite, a thing pieced together out of inference and shadow because its own fur is gone past all recovering. But not every coat was lost. Somewhere in the rock, against very long odds, a few of these creatures went down into stillness and fine mud in just the right way, and the fur stayed, pressed flat, darkened to little more than a stain, but unmistakably there, the separate hairs still lying just as they lay on the living animal. One of them, in particular, has been waiting a very long time, with its coat still on it, for someone to come and read what it kept. Here it is then, a slab of grey stone, not much longer than your forearm, and at first glance it holds only the ordinary furniture of a fossil, a spine curled the way a sleeping animal curls, the fan of a rib cage, the long bones of the legs folded under. It came out of an old lake bed in the north of what is now China, laid down something like 164 million years ago, when that ground lay quiet under standing water and a slow rain of fine silt was settling year upon year over everything that sank into it. But the bones are not the thing that stops you. Around them, fringing the whole outline of the body, there is a darker stain in the rock, soft-edged, faint, the color of old water damage on a ceiling. And that stain is what nobody had ever quite managed to see before. It is the fur. Not guessed at, not reasoned out from the shape of the skeleton, but simply there, the actual coat of an actual animal, its separate hairs still lying against the stone where they once lay against the skin. The creature was given a name long after it died, Castorocauda, which means something close to beaver tail, and it was no relation you would know to look at. It was about the size of a small otter, and it lived a good deal like one. A broad, scaled, paddling tail, limbs set for the water, teeth shaped for closing on slippery fish. It is not one of your grandparents. It sat off to one side of the long line that leads to you, a cousin on a branch all its own, and that branch is gone now to the last twig. Yet it wore the very same kind of coat your branch was wearing, and because the lake took it down so gently and sealed it away so completely, its coat is the one that lasted. Through this one animal, we get to look, just once and plainly, at a thing the rock almost never keeps for us. And what the coat shows, when you bring your eye in close, is that it was already the coat we know. There is nothing tentative in it, nothing half-made. The hairs sort themselves cleanly into two kinds, exactly as they do on a fox or a cat sleeping on the end of your bed tonight. Long, coarse guard hairs lying over the top, and packed in beneath them a dense, fine underfur set close against the skin. Each kind keeps to its own work. The guard hairs take the weather and the wear and turn the wet. The underfur, far finer than anything your eye could pick out one strand at a time, mats together into a deep and motionless layer that the warmth of the body can only cross with great reluctance. This is fur as nearly every furred animal alive still wears it, that same two-layered make, and here it is, whole and already sorted into its parts, more than 160 million years deep in the rock. Whatever fumbling beginnings hair once had were long behind it by the time this animal slipped into the water. When a team first described the creature back in 2006, the detail that caught the light was that tail, those paddles, those fish-catching teeth, the plain fact that it swam. And swimming is what turns its coat from a curiosity into a piece of evidence, because water draws the heat out of a warm body many times faster than air can. An animal that spends its hours in cold water is an animal whose coat is being put to the hardest test a coat can be put to, and a thick, water-shedding underlayer trapping warmth against the skin is precisely what passes that test. It is the same answer the otter reaches for now, and the beaver and the fur seal out in its freezing grey sea, that identical coarse, over-fine arrangement, sealing a bed of dense underfur against the body, holding a creature's heat in against water, forever trying to pull it out. These are branches of the tree of life that had already gone their separate ways before this swimmer was ever born, and have never met since. Nobody carried the answer from one to the other. The cold water put the same question to each of them, and each of them, quite alone, came up with fur. You are carrying the pattern of that coat yourself, right now, even though the depth of it has long since drained out of your line. Lay a hand flat against your own forearm, and you are touching the same 2 grades of hair, still sorted the way they were sorted in that swimmer's pelt, the coarse ones, the kind you can actually take hold of, along your brow and your lashes and your scalp, and the fine, pale, soft ones, the easily overlooked ones, running down the backs of your hands and arms. Each single one of them is rooted in its own narrow pit in the skin, a follicle, and against each follicle lies the small muscle this whole long story turns on, and those follicles are laid out across you in the same patterned field they were laid out across that animal in the lake. The coat itself thinned in your line, almost away to nothing. The pattern of it did not. The 2 kinds of hair, the follicles in their orderly array, the little muscle waiting at the root of every one, all of it came down to you intact, the shape of a coat, outliving the coat it was the shape of. And that small muscle, in a coat like the one lying in the stone, was nothing idle. Set it working across a deep pelt, and it stands the guard hairs up and loosens the underfur and thickens that motionless trapped layer against the skin, and on the bitterest nights that added thickness was the whole of the margin. The line between a body that carried its warmth through to morning and a body that did not. The muscle you can barely feel tighten on your arm was once a single working part in an instrument of real and tested precision, and the coat it pulled upon was doing real and tested work. It is worth sitting still with that thought a moment, because the very thing we are so quick now to wave off as useless was, across a stretch of time longer than the mind can honestly take in, nothing of the kind. But an instrument stays sharp only for as long as it is asked to work, and a coat stays deep only for as long as the cold keeps calling on it. For 100 million years and more, down the whole line that runs to you, the cold did keep calling. The same pressure that had pressed the coat into being went on pressing it, cold hour after cold hour, life after life, and held it thick and entire. Pressure, though, is not a law of nature that has to hold. It can bear down, and it can also slacken and lift, and a coat that is no longer being called upon is a coat that can begin slowly and with nothing anywhere deciding it to be set aside. Somewhere along your own branch, late and oddly, and for reasons we have not yet arrived at, that long cold call at last began to lose its hold. And when the thing that keeps an instrument sharp lets go of it, the instrument does not simply disappear. It lingers. It stays on in the body, doing less and less, listening for a cold that comes to claim it less and less often, which is very nearly the condition you found it in. There on your own arm, on the ordinary morning, all of this began. Step back from that one arm for a moment, though, and a stranger thing swims into view than a small muscle still tugging at a coat that is no longer there. The whole arm is bare. So is nearly all the rest of you. And it is the bareness, far more than the idle muscle, that ought to stop us, because among the large animals of the land you are very nearly alone in it. The deer wears its coat, and the wolf, and the bear, and the horse, and the hare. The lion lies down in a full coat in the heat of the day. Run your eye across the big warm-blooded animals of the world, and almost every last one of them is dressed. You, descended from animals that wore as deep a coat as any of them, go about as though something had reached in and plucked you. And that is a thing that genuinely wants explaining. Your nearest relatives never did this. The chimpanzee and the gorilla, who share all but the last sliver of your family history, are furred as thoroughly as that swimmer in the lake. Somewhere after your line and theirs went their separate ways, and only on your side of the parting, the deep coat was surrendered. Not the follicles which you kept, and not every hair, but the thing itself, the warming pelt, the part that could be raised. We cannot put a clean date on the loss because skin and hair fall out of the record almost without trace. But by something over 1 million years ago, the bareness seems already to have settled in, and it settled in nowhere else in the whole order of primates. Of all the apes, only the one telling you this story took off its coat. Why we did, and no other ape did, is one of those questions that can be turned over for a long while without ever quite coming to rest. There is no shortage of answers on offer, and the honest trouble is that several of them are believable at once. Some have pointed to the parasites a coat harbors, the ticks and lice and biting things that a bare skin leaves nowhere to hide, and to the plainer mates that clean skin might win. There is even a romantic notion that we shed our fur for a life half in the water, which makes a lovely story and which almost no one who studies these things accepts. The most persuasive of them, though, is the simplest pressure of all, the one that had been shaping this lineage since long before there were any apes in it: heat. Not the holding of it now, but the getting rid of it. For the whole of this story so far, the danger had run one way. A warm body in a cold world loses heat it cannot afford to lose, and a deep coat is the answer to it. But the country your line walked out into turned that danger over. It was open ground and hot, and lit by a sun with nothing between it and the dust, and a body working hard across it, walking and carrying and following game through the worst of the day, now ran the opposite risk. It could cook from the inside. A warm body burns its fuel into heat, and at that pace, under that sun, the heat had to go somewhere or the body would fail. A deep coat, so precious for so long, is exactly the wrong thing to be wearing when the trouble has stopped being how to keep heat in and become how to pour it out. The very same matter that had built the coat, the managing of the body's own warmth, had simply turned around and begun pulling the other way. The ones who carried less of the heavy pelt and whose barer skin could throw heat off faster held out longer in the open without dropping and came home, and had young who were barer still. Nothing chose to undress them. The sun did the choosing, the way the cold once had, only now it spared the bare. And it was no free gift either. A skin with no coat over it had to darken, loading itself with pigment to take the day's hard light without harm, so that the shedding of the coat and the deepening of the skin came on together, the two halves of a single bargain struck with the sun. There is a second, odder clock for all of this. The lice that live in the seams of our clothing parted from the lice that live in our hair only a couple of 100,000 years ago, and that split marks, near enough, the time we first began to dress. And a creature does not trouble to invent clothing unless it has already, long before, lost the coat that clothing stands in for. We had been going bare, in other words, for the better part of 1 million years before it ever once crossed our minds to cover ourselves up again. And you are still running the answer the sun selected for this very night, whether the night is warm or not. Set into your bare skin, by the million, 2 million of them, 3, far more than any of your furred cousins carry, are tiny wells that no other animal works quite the way you do. Sweat glands spread across very nearly the whole surface of you. When you overheat, they wet that surface, and the moving air lifts the water off it, and your warmth goes with the water into the air. It is cooling by evaporation, the same trick that chills a wet field at dusk, and it stepped into the work the coat once did, only the work runs the opposite way now, carrying heat off you instead of holding it against you. Somewhere a very long way back, a bare, dark-skinned ancestor of yours kept a steady walking pace down a long, bright afternoon, sheened and dripping and wholly untroubled by a sun that would have driven a coated animal flat into the shade. That cooling skin is the skin you are lying in now. You ran it this morning, in a warm room, without once being asked. And the small muscle, through all of this, simply never got the news. It is still there, one set to each follicle, still strung to the same old alarm, still firing on the same 2 cues of cold and of fright, still doing the single thing it has ever known how to do, drawing a hair upright. But the hair it draws up now is the barest ghost of what its forebears raised. The deep, liftable coat it was shaped to loft is gone from your body, and what answers its pull is a thin stubble, far too short and too fine to gather into a warming layer or to throw your outline up larger in the dark. So it does its work, and does it flawlessly, and the work comes to nothing at all. That small rising you feel travel up your arm is the muscle succeeding with perfect fidelity at a task the world stopped having any use for a very long time ago. Or so, at the very least, it has long appeared. It is one of the purest leftovers the body keeps, a thing that still does precisely what it was shaped to do in a body that no longer needs it done. To catch that same muscle still plainly earning its place, though, you need not go back 1,000,000 years or break open any stone. You need only look at almost any animal that held on to its coat. There is a cat, perhaps, asleep on a wall along your street tonight. Let something cross it wrong as it sleeps. A strange dog, a sudden sound. And watch what runs the length of its spine in the half-second it comes awake. The very pull that raises a pointless bump along your forearm raises, on a body still wearing the coat for it, a hard ridge of standing fur from the neck to the tail, and the creature swells on the instant to half again its size, darker and taller and far less worth taking on than the soft thing that lay down a moment before. The reflex you have very nearly run out of uses for is out there in the furred dark, still doing one of the oldest jobs it was ever given. We take the bristling cat for a creature simply overcome, its fur on end the way our own skin goes tight, an animal so frightened or so furious that the feeling has climbed right out through its coat. And there is feeling in it, of course, but the standing fur is doing something far more pointed than spilling over. It is aimed. Every raised hair on that arched back is turned outward at the dog or the rival or the cornering hand, and what the body is doing with them is not merely suffering an emotion, but sending a message shaped across a vast stretch of trial and death to reach straight into another animal and change what it does next. The cat is not only feeling something. The cat is saying something, and saying it in the one language a body can raise faster than thought. What the message says, were you to put it into words, runs close to this. I am larger and more dangerous than you took me for, and you would do well not to begin. And the reason such a claim is worth making, the reason it has worked often enough to last, lies in the plain economics of a fight. Size, on the whole, tracks the power to do harm. The bigger animal is the likelier to win and the costlier to lose to, and so it pays very nearly everyone to step wide of the larger thing rather than test it. A coat thrown up on end buys a slice of that deference in an instant, and for almost nothing, a body made, for the length of the standoff, to read as bigger than it truly is. And it is quicker than anything the body could manage by force. Up before a claw is unsheathed, before a tooth is bared, the opening word in the half-second, when the matter might still go either way. It is a bluff in the plainest meaning of the word. And the bluff holds, not because it is always true, but because calling it can cost an animal its life, and few are willing to stake that much to find out. Among the coated animals, the performance is everywhere, and it wears 100 faces. The dog lifts a stiff crest down its neck and shoulders, the hackles we call them, and stands taller within its own outline. The cornered rat doubles in apparent bulk between one breath and the next. The chimpanzee in a rage goes up all over, every hair erect as it rushes and drums and screams, a body swollen into a moving wall of threat. Not every lifted hair is a message, of course. A great deal of it is still the old business of warmth, or merely the body's arousal showing through the skin. But in these high, deliberate displays, the signal is unmistakable. And it would be a mistake to tally them as so many separate inventions, because within the warm-blooded animals they are not many things but one. The dog and the rat and the ape and the cat all run the very same wiring to the very same small muscles, the whole arrangement handed down intact from an ancestor they share, and that you share with them. Among the furred, the raised coat is not a cleverness arrived at over and over. It is a single old heirloom carried down 1,000 branches at once. Step outside the warm-blooded animals, though, and the genuinely strange thing shows itself, the same trick, assembled from altogether different parts. A frightened bird owns neither your muscles nor your kind of covering, yet it has machinery of its own, and it drives its feathers up and out into a rounder, larger, more formidable shape for precisely the reason the cat does. Go further still, and it is no longer even the same sort of body doing it. The pufferfish swells itself huge with swallowed water, the toad fills with air, the cobra draws its ribs wide into a spread hood that seems to stare. A cat, turned sidelong, bends its whole spine into an arch of borrowed height. Not one of these took the idea from any other. Each lineage, hard pressed by the very same question, how can a smaller thing make a larger one think better of the matter without a fight it might not survive, felt its way alone to the very same answer with whatever it happened to have lying to hand. Some bargains are so dependable that life keeps striking them again in creatures that never met and never could. To loom larger than you are is among the oldest of them, and among the most reinvented. And you still make the very same claim, even with nothing left to make it with. Set a person down in front of a thing that threatens or enrages them and watch the body answer before the mind has settled anything. The chin comes up, the shoulders roll back and spread, the chest fills and rises. It is the same ancient reach for size, running on in a frame that gave up its coat 100,000 generations ago. Squared off with someone in a narrow doorway or braced over a piece of hard news, you feel it plainly enough, a tightening that climbs the back of the neck and crowds up over the scalp, the very lift that travels down the cat's spine, except that on you it raises nothing a single soul can see. It is the bluff with the cards quietly taken away, the whole gesture still performed, in full, and no effect left at the end of it. The muscle still strains to make you loom. The coat that would have done the looming is simply gone. So the leftover we have been so quick to set aside turns out, held up against the rest of the living world, to be nothing of the kind. The reflex is not the useless thing. Out there in the dark tonight, it is settling 1,000 quarrels with no blow struck, turning predators aside, ending standoffs before they start, doing exactly what it has always done. Lift that same muscle out of your bare skin and seat it back into a proper coat, and it would return to its work word for word. What has failed, in your case, and almost yours alone, is the stage it once played upon, the screen of fur it used to raise, struck and carried off. The muscle is willing. There is simply nothing left on you for it to move, and so, on a body like yours, it goes on looking for all the world like effort poured into empty air. And yet there is one place the reflex fires where not a word of any of this reaches, where there is no rival in the doorway, and no cold in the room, and nothing whatever in the dark to bristle at, and the hairs rise all the same. It may well come to you more often than fear ever has. It arrives when you are wholly safe, the doors shut, the night still, a passage of music opening out into something vast, a voice that snags on a single word, a turn in a story that lands somewhere beneath the ribs, and a slow wave of goose flesh lifts along your arms and up the back of your neck for a thing that cannot harm you and cannot warm you, and is not, by any logic the body was ever shaped by, so much as there. It comes as a wave. A passage of music gathers and climbs towards something, and at the instant it arrives, The key lifting where you did not expect it, a single voice stepping out over the held breath of the strings. A band of goose flesh sweeps up the arms and across the back of the neck, the breath snags, and for a second or two the whole surface of you is awake and standing. And the genuinely astonishing thing about that wave, once you stop to look at it, is that it is the same wave. The lift on your arm at the swell of a cello is the identical reflex that a freezing doorway pulls from you on a winter morning, and that a real fright pulls from you in the dark. The same muscle, the same signal down the same old wire, the same coat going half up. Except that here there is nothing. No cold to hold off, no creature in the black, nothing on the whole earth to survive. Only sound, ordered in time, and somehow that is enough to set off an alarm laid down for snow and for teeth hundreds of millions of years before there was ever such a thing as a song. We borrowed a word for it from the French, frisson, a shiver, though the word is the smallest part of what we have managed to learn. Take a person who reliably feels these chills, lay them in a scanner, and give them the passage that undoes them every time, and you can watch where in the brain the chill is answered. Not in some minor back office of the skin's housekeeping, but in the oldest reward centers there are, the same deep ground that lights for food and for sex, that governs wanting and pleasure both. At the music's peak, the brain pours out its chemical of reward, the very currency it spends on the things a body cannot live or breed without. So the chill is nothing so slight as a quirk of the goose flesh. It is wired straight into the heart of pleasure, and the body, flooded, treats 4 bars of Brahms as something as worth having as a warm meal. Nor does it strike just anywhere in the music. The chill tends to come at one particular kind of moment, the place where the sound has quietly led you to expect one thing, and then, at the hinge, hands you another, or hands you the very thing you were aching for in a way you could not quite see coming. A harmony that leans and at last resolves. A lone voice arriving over silence, a held hush that breaks open all at once into something vast. The late lifting key change in a song you have heard 100 times that still takes you on the 101st. All through the listening, far below any noticing of it, you are reading the pattern and guessing ahead, and at the instant your guess is broken open or answered past your hoping, the reflex goes. Some part of what we call beauty, it turns out, is expectation. Set up, withheld, and paid off, played as deliberately as any instrument in the room. But ask the next question. Why a swell of strings should reach all the way down and take hold of a muscle shaped for blizzards and for predators, and here, in all honesty, the ground gives way beneath the foot. We do not know. This is one of those places where the long, patient study of the body arrives for all its scanners and all its centuries, with its hands open and empty. The likeliest answer, and it is only a likeliest, is that the chill is an overflow. The reflex was never tied to one named danger. It answers to arousal itself, to the body's broad rising sense of something enormous is happening now, and it has no way of telling where that surge was born. Music, arranging nothing but air in time, conjures the surge out of nowhere, wins the body to a pitch as steep as terror or awe with not one real thing standing behind it, and the old reflex, feeling the tide roll through, does the single thing it has ever done and reaches for the coat. One thinker guessed that the deepest chills, the ones the saddest music gives, might be reaching an older circuitry still. The body's answer to loss, to being left behind, to the ancient cry of separation. But that too is guesswork in a lab coat. No one was ever born who raised more children because a melody gave them goose flesh. It does nothing for you, nothing at all. It is, as far as anyone can honestly say, a side effect, a very old response, caught up in a tide it was never shaped to feel and answering it anyway. And it does not even visit everyone. Something close to 2 in 3 people know the music chill. The rest may hear the same passage and love it every bit as much and feel nothing whatever rise on the skin. It seems to run with a certain turn of temperament, with the kind of person who is easily and willingly absorbed, who sinks deep into a piece of music or a wide view or a line of verse and simply lets it have them. If you are one who gets the chills, you carry a small and faithful proof that the oldest wiring in you can still be reached by the newest things you have learned to love. And if you are one who does not, nothing is wanting in you for it. The reflex in you is only quieter at this particular door and keeps its answers, as it always has, mostly for the cold. It is worth holding still over because it is one of the gentler wonders the body keeps. The same small muscle that once stood a coat against the cold of a world before mammals, that lifted the hackles of some startled thing in the leaf dark, that swelled a cornered animal until it could face its enemy down, that muscle, all but unchanged across more than 200 million years, is the muscle that rises on your forearm when a song cracks open. The signal that carries the order is the same signal. The pull at the root of the hair is the same pull. Everything in it has held but the world that calls for it, and that has changed past all knowing, from a falling night to a shadow on the path, to 4 quiet bars of music in a warm room where nothing whatever is wrong. And when it lifts, when the chill runs up your arms in that warm and undangerous room, notice, if you can, just where it travels. It climbs the forearms, yes, and the nape, and over the scalp. But it goes too, across ground you would never think of as having any hair at all to raise. The shoulders, the chest, the strange, cool spread of it down the back. For those few seconds, the body insists on something your eyes have been quietly denying you your whole life. You feel a coat lift. You feel distinctly the standing of a pelt that you would swear, on any ordinary morning, you do not for a moment own. The chill is not deceiving you. It is the one reliable instant in which the body tells you the plain truth about your own skin, a truth you have been wearing all this while without once seeing it. Hold your forearm up to a window sometime, in the slanting light of a low sun, and turn it slowly until the light comes across the skin almost flat. At the right angle, the arm gives up a secret it keeps in plainer light. All across it, rising out of skin, you have spent your whole life calling bare, stands a fine pale down, hundreds of soft, near-colorless hairs, each one catching the light along its length, lying in their little currents and whirls the way the nap lies on velvet. You knew in some distant way that the down was there. What is hard to take in is how much of it there is, and how completely it covers you, and how thoroughly your own eyes have agreed every ordinary day of your life to call a covered arm a naked one. Because the story we tell about ourselves is that we are the bare ape, the one mammal that came down out of its fur and walked away from it. And that story, in the only sense that turns out to matter, is not true. Set a fingertip on the skin of your arm and you are touching a coat. Count what is under it and the count comes out staggering. Something near 5 million hair follicles are set into the skin of an adult human body, and a chimpanzee, fur and all, carries about the same. Follicle for follicle, patch for patch of skin, we are as densely planted as the animal we point to as the picture of covered. Nothing was taken out. The roots are all still there, all 5 million of them, sunk in the skin exactly where an ape's would be. We did not lose the coat in the way you lose a thing and have it gone. We lost it the way a field goes pale over a dry summer, every stalk still standing, every one of them simply turned down. For a single follicle can grow 2 altogether different hairs, depending only on how hard it is run. Turned up to full, it makes what is called a terminal hair, the long, thick, well-colored kind that grows from your scalp, that stands as brow and lash, that comes in across the body at puberty. Turned low, the very same follicle makes a vellus hair instead, short, fine, pale, soft, the down now lying along your forearm in the raking light. The roots are identical. The difference is all in the running of them, and on the human body the running has gone almost everywhere to low. A few regions stay turned up, the scalp, the face of a grown man, a scatter of others, and a very few patches grow nothing at all, the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, the red of your lips. But that truly bare ground is a few square inches in a whole landscape of skin, and all the rest of you, every part you think of as smooth, is downed over with a coat turned so far down that the light has to come in almost level before it will admit the coat is there. And the turning down, rather than a clearing out, is just what you would expect of the slow and frugal way these changes actually come. To take a hair out of service, you do not have to pull up the root and seal the ground over it. That is a great deal of rebuilding for no added gain. You only have to quiet the follicle, let it keep its place and its plumbing and grow a thinner thread or a shorter one, or wait longer between growings. That is the smaller change. The nearer one, the one a thinning lineage arrives at first, and once the coat had gone fine enough that it held no warmth worth the cost of carrying, there was nothing left to press the change any further. A hair too slight to matter is also too slight to be worth deleting. So the deleting never came. The pressure that had thinned the coat ran out the moment the coat stopped mattering and left the whole apparatus standing right where it was, quieted, miniaturized, but entire. Which is the fact this chapter has been walking toward, and it turns the ghost we have been chasing clean around. Every one of those 5 million follicles, the few still turned up and the millions turned down alike, the fine, pale vellus, every bit as much as the hair on your head, carries its own small muscle, its own erector pili slung against the root, just as we have been describing all along, and every one of those muscles is still wired into the old alarm. There is not one lonely relic muscle haunting a bare arm. There is a coat's worth of muscle in you, millions strong, one slip of it to every hair, the invisible down included. And all of it still listening on the ancient line. So when the cold finds you, or the high turn in the music, or the footstep behind you on the dark stair, the muscle that pulls is not reaching after a coat that has gone. It is lifting the coat that is here. Faint past seeing, yes, but real and present and standing up off your skin in the only instant you ever feel it do so. The goose flesh was never the lifting of nothing. It was the lifting of a coat you had stopped being able to see. You can watch the follicle change its setting too if you know where to look, because it never locks at one reading for good. At puberty, whole fields of it turn the other way. The soft down on a boy's jaw thickens and darkens and stands out as a beard. The same follicles that were vellus the year before now run all the way up to terminal. The coat turning on in patches as the body comes of age. And the dial turns back down as readily as it turned up. On a balding scalp, the hairs do not pack up and leave. They thin. Year over year, each terminal hair comes back a little finer, a little shorter, a little paler, stepping back down through its settings toward the soft vellus it first grew from, until the crown is covered in a down so fine the eye reads it wrongly as skin. A man watching his hairline go is not watching hairs vanish. He is watching follicles turn down, and watching, in the slow motion of one lifetime and over a few square inches, a small rehearsal of the very turning down that took the whole human coat across 1,000 years. And if you want it proven on your own body that you did not merely inherit this coat, but grew it, in full, with your own follicles, you did, and not so long ago as you might think. In the dark of the womb, somewhere around the 4th or 5th month, every one of us grows a complete fine pelt over nearly the whole body. It has a name of its own, lanugo, and it is a true coat. the hairs all laid down in their proper tracts and lying all one way, the same sweeping pattern of furred animal wears, grown by an unborn child who will never feel a moment of cold against it. You wear that coat for a few weeks in the warm dark, and then you shed it, mostly before you are born, sometimes in the first days after, the fine hairs let go into the fluid around you and swallowed and gone. So before you had taken a single breath of open air, you had grown a whole coat, worn it, and taken it off. The thing we keep calling lost, you made from scratch in there, in the months before your face had a name to it. Which leaves only the question this whole turning around has sharpened to a point. If the coat is still on you, and every last hair of it still trails its own small muscle, and every muscle is still strung to the alarm, then what, exactly, is all that muscle doing down there, hair by hair, in a coat too fine to warm you and too faint to be seen? The answer was never going to be found in the hair, nor in the muscle taken alone. It has been hiding, all this while, in the one place we have not yet gone down to look, the joining where the muscle takes hold of the root, and to see it we have to go all the way down to a single follicle and stand inside the meeting of the two. So come down now, off the surface and through it, and let the whole wide field of the coat narrow to a single hair and the pit it grows from. From above it was the least thing imaginable, a pore, a freckle of shadow, the dot where one fine hair breaks the skin. Come close, though, and the dot opens into a place with depth and order to it. A long shaft, sunk at a slant into the skin, lined with living wall, and seated at the bottom of it, the root of the hair, cupped in a little bulb that feeds it and lengthens it. It is less a hole than a narrow slip sunk in the flesh, with the hair standing up out of it the way a mast stands in its slip, leaning a little as nearly every hair on you leans along the grain of the skin. And it is not alone down there. Gathered close around that one shaft, in an arrangement repeated some millions of times over across you, and laid the very same way in almost every furred thing alive, are the few small parts this whole long story has been working its way down toward. The first of them we already know by name. Off the side of the shaft, anchored low against its wall, runs the small muscle we have followed all this way, the erector pili, and from that low anchor it climbs at a slant up through the skin to fasten again just beneath the surface, so that muscle and shaft and skin together pen a narrow triangle with the hair leaning through the middle of it. Watch what happens when the old signal reaches the muscle and it draws up short. Fixed at both ends, it cannot move itself, so it moves what it is tied to. It hauls the leaning shaft over toward standing, the hair swings up off its slant toward upright, and at the surface the skin is tugged down into the small puckered knot of a goose pimple around it. That is the whole of the visible event. The lift you feel run up your arm is only this, happening all at once in a spreading wave across millions of these triangles, each one hauling its single hair a degree nearer to standing. Cradled in the angle of that triangle, in the crook between the muscle and the shaft, sits a small, soft gland that feeds a steady trickle of oil into the channel of the follicle. The grease that works its way up the hair and out over the skin to keep it supple and sealed against the air. It has long been supposed that when the muscle bunches, it presses on this gland and helps wring the oil up and out, and that may well be a part of what the squeeze accomplishes. The honest position is that we are not fully sure how much of that work it really does, but you can take the measure of the gland without any scanner at all. Wash your face clean and leave it some hours, then draw a fingertip slowly down the side of your nose or across your forehead, and the faint slick that comes away was pressed up out of these same little springs, follicle by follicle, the whole day long. It is a real thing the arrangement does. It is also plainly far too small a thing to be the answer to the question this place is about to put to us. And there is more gathered here than a muscle and a gland. For down to the muscle, threading its way through the tissue to reach it, comes a fine twig of nerve, a far outrunner of that same broad alarm line we have traced since the cold and the fright, the channel that carries the body's one rough word of readiness out to the skin. It runs down here, to this muscle, on this follicle, and there it ends. We will set aside for a moment the matter of what it is saying when it fires, because to feel the real force of that, we first have to understand the one part of this place we have not yet looked at squarely, the spot low on the shaft where the muscle takes its deepest hold. Because the follicle is not the fixed and finished thing it looks, and a hair is not grown once and kept, but grown and shed and grown again over and over the whole length of your life. Each living hair spends a long stretch, months and often years, lengthening up from its bulb, and then the deep part of the follicle that made it loosens its work and quietly takes itself apart, and the hair stops growing and after a while is let go and falls. And then, following a rest, the whole lower works are raised again from almost nothing, and a fresh hair begins to climb where the old one stood. Every hair you have ever lifted off a pillow or drawn out of a comb was one turn of that wheel. The deep end of the follicle is unmade and raised again, unmade and raised again, more times than you could count across a life, which leaves one plain and pressing question. If the lower works are taken down and made over with every hair, then something that is never taken down must be keeping the place, holding the pattern, furnishing the cells from which each new follicle is raised. Something in here has to be the part that stays, and it is. A little way up the shaft, set off to one side, there is a slight swelling in the wall of the follicle, no grand landmark, only a place where the tube thickens and bulges a touch outward. The anatomists found it long ago, well over 100 years back, peering down their brass microscopes at thin sliced skin, and they named it for nothing grander than that outward swell. And they marked, too, the one other plain fact about it, which is that the little swelling sits just where the erector pili muscle takes its deep anchor against the shaft. The muscle's lower foot and the swelling are the same spot on the follicle. For a long lifetime of science, that was the whole of it, a convenient bump marking the place where the muscle gripped. Only much later did anyone learn what the swelling actually holds. It is the follicle's one kept reserve, a small standing store of unspent cells held back from all the raising and unmaking below, the source from which every new lower follicle is raised and every new hair begun. It is the permanent heart of the thing, the part never torn down, the cradle that each hair you will ever grow has still to come from. And of all the places along the length of the follicle where the muscle might have taken its hold, it has its grip closed there, on that. Stand back then and look at what has gathered in this one small place. A muscle that now hauls upright a coat far too faint to warm anyone, that may for its trouble help wring a little oil up onto the skin, and that fastens its deepest hold out of the whole length of the follicle onto the hidden reserve from which the entire hair is forever remade, with a thread of the body's most ancient alarm running all the way down to end on that very muscle, at that very spot. And the strangest part is not the arrangement itself, but what was made of it, which for a very long time was nothing at all. The whole of it lay drawn and named and open in the anatomy books for more than 100 years, every piece plainly in view. And almost no one stopped to put the obvious question to it. Why a muscle for the lifting of hair should fasten itself to the very nursery of hair, or what the old alarm line was doing, reaching so far down to meet it there. The pieces lay quietly together in plain sight, and kept their secret for no better reason than that nobody had thought to ask. And then, only a few years ago, in a quiet stretch of work on the skin of mice, somebody finally did. And the answer that came back reached out and took the faithful, useless ghost we have carried through this whole story, and after 200 million years, began, at last, to turn it the rest of the way around. The animal it was found in was nothing much to look at. A mouse, the plain grey mouse of 1,000 laboratories. And the thing it did was the most ordinary thing in the world. Let a mouse live through a spell of real cold, and over the following days its coat grows thicker, it puts on hair, it raises a denser pelt against the season, and so holds more of that film of still air we spoke of long ago between its warm body and the freezing world. This happens to very nearly every furred creature that meets a hard winter, and it is so completely unremarkable that for the longest time no one thought there was a question folded up inside it. But there is, and it is the exact question we were left holding at the close of all that anatomy. How does the cold's order travel down to that buried reserve of cells, the one the muscle keeps its grip on, and rouse it to wake and raise new hair? What carries the message in? A team of researchers working on mouse skin at Harvard went looking for whatever ran that message, and what they turned up was waiting precisely where we had left it. The fine thread of nerve that comes down and ends on the muscle does not, it turns out, merely pass the follicle on its way to somewhere else. Followed closely, it runs straight into that hidden reserve of cells, and there it opens out and laps around them, laid right up against the very cells from which each new hair is raised close as an embrace. The old alarm line does not just reach the neighborhood of the cradle, it touches it. And the thing that holds it there, that pins the nerve in contact with those cells and will not let it slip away, is the small muscle. Take the muscle out of the skin while it is first forming, and the nerve never settles where it ought to. It loses its purchase on the reserve and drifts off, and that close contact is never made at all. The muscle is what keeps the alarm line fastened to the cradle of the hair. And what does the nerve say, laid so near against those cells? It says the only word it has ever known how to say, the same rough syllable we watched all that way back go out across the whole body and set the heart racing and the skin closing and the hairs standing up on the arm. Noradrenaline, the body's one blunt note of readiness. At rest it arrives as the faintest murmur, a low and steady trickle of that word against the reserve, just enough to keep those cells poised and willing, leaning toward waking without ever quite waking. But let the cold come down and settle and stay, not a passing draft, but a season, and the alarm line lifts its voice and pours that same word over the reserve in earnest, and the cells answer in the only way such cells can. They stir and divide and set about raising new hair, follicle upon follicle, until the whole coat has come in thicker against the weather. The cold speaks. The nerve carries the word down, the cradle answers in fur. Sit a moment with what that folds together, because it lays side by side two things no one had thought to set together before. The very same surge, down the very same line, does two utterly different things, parted by nothing but how long it is held. Held for a heartbeat, a cold doorway, a fright on the stair, 4 bars of music. It shortens the muscle and stands the existing coat on end, and you feel the small lift run up your arm, and you call it a goosebump. Held for days and weeks, a true and lasting cold, it reaches past the muscle to the reserve the muscle anchors and thickens the coat itself. The fleeting, useless-looking shiver of the hair and the slow life and death growing of the pelt turn out to be one single answer to one single signal, told apart only by the clock, the same flood of the same word, spent fast as a bristle of gooseflesh and slow as a winter coat. And now turn and look once more at the small muscle we have spent this whole journey pitying. The thing we had written off as a leftover, a relic tugging uselessly at a coat the body let go of an age ago, turns out to be the one strut holding the most ancient alarm in the body hard against the cradle of the hair, the single join without which the cold could never reach that reserve at all, and the coat could never answer the season. The whole long while we were taking the muscle's measure by the one thing we could catch it doing, that small, visible tug at the surface, It was quietly being the thing that lets the oldest signal we carry lay a hand on the growing of the coat. It is hard to think of a cleaner turn anywhere in the body. The part we stood ready to call the most faithful do-nothing in us was, the entire time, holding the very join the whole arrangement hangs from. It is worth being straight about where this was caught, though, because it matters. It was caught in the mouse, whose cold still buys it something real, an honest coat, thick enough to be worth the growing. But the parts are not the mouse's alone. We stood among them only a little while ago in your own skin. The same small muscle, the same alarm line, the same buried reserve of cells, joined in the same three-cornered way that nearly every furred animal alive carries in its hide. So the strut is in you. The old alarm still runs down to the cradle of every hair you own. That low murmur is very likely passing along the line this minute, holding your own reserves poised and ready. What has thinned in us is not the wiring, but what the wiring has left to act upon. For the coat your follicles can still raise is the faint, all but invisible down. And so the cold may call, and the nerve may carry the word, and the cradle may even stir to answer, and what comes up is next to nothing at all. The wiring came through whole. Only its harvest in us has worn away to the very edge of nothing. So as you lie here in the warm dark, take it in that you are not, after all, carrying a dead thing in your skin. That same ancient line is laid this second against the reserve in every follicle of you, keeping its low and patient post at the root of every hair, holding each small cradle ready for a cold. Your life will almost certainly never ask you to answer with fur again. The faithful ghost we named at the very beginning turns out to have been no ghost at all, but a living, working part of you, strung to the oldest alarm you own, fastened to the very wellspring of the coat, tending with perfect and pointless care a pelt that has all but vanished from your body and left only its faintest shadow lying on your arm. And it keeps its post regardless, faithful still to a winter that for you is never going to come. After the mouse, you might think we had cleared the Goosebumps name for good, shown it to be no leftover and no idle relic, but a living and even a needed thing, the single join that lets the cold lay its hand on the coat. And in the mouse, that is exactly right. But carry the same question home to your own skin and put it plainly. Is the thing that rises on your arm still, in any honest sense, a vestige? And the answer that comes back is yes, and it is stranger and quieter than the word tends to allow. It is a vestige still, only not at all the kind the word first brings to mind. When we call a part vestigial, the picture that rises is of some withered, half-finished stub, a thing the body began to be rid of and never quite troubled to finish, like the small tailbone at the base of your spine, or the pale, unseeing eye of a fish that has lived too many ages in a lightless cave. The goosebump is nothing of that kind. The muscle is whole, the wiring is sound, and the whole arrangement, as we have just seen, is alive and at work. And so what has gone vestigial in you cannot be the apparatus at all. It is the use the apparatus was once good for that has quietly fallen away. Each time the reflex fires, and it fires in you more times across a life than anyone could ever count, it does its work without a fault. The small muscles draw up, the coat goes to stand, the skin knots into its old familiar grain. And every single time, that flawless act comes down upon a body that has no coat for it to matter to. The warmth it once held against the night, it holds none of now. The bulk it once threw up against a closing set of teeth, it throws up nothing. The deed is still perfect, and the reason for the deed is gone, and a perfect deed still faithfully carried out long after the reason for it has left the world is as pure a vestige as anything the body keeps, and a far stranger one than any shrunken stub. So consider what you are left holding when a reflex goes on firing, but the payoff it once fired for has been cut clean away. You are left with a signal come loose from its meaning, an alarm still perfectly able to sound, no longer tied to the one or two things it first sounded for. We saw early on how blunt this particular alarm is, how readily a whole crowd of things can trip it. Now follow where, across a real human life, it truly does get tripped, and mark how far that has wandered from the frost and from the thing in the dark. The old cues do still pull it after their fashion. A cold morning will bristle your forearm the way it always has and leave you not 1 degree warmer for the trouble. A genuine fright will still send the crawl climbing up the back of your neck and make you not the breadth of a single hair larger to whatever caused it. But lay those beside everything else that sets it off now, and the cold and the fright begin to look like the smaller part of the tale. There is the slow swell of a piece of music gathering toward its height, the chill we have already followed up into the strings. There is the wide hush that takes you under a high stone ceiling or at the lip of a long view or beneath a sky with far too many stars in it. There is the quick prickle when a line of a poem shuts like a key turning in a lock, or when some truth you had half carried for years stands of a sudden clear and whole in front of you. There is the wave that breaks over you at a face you had not seen in a decade, at a voice coming up out of an old recording, at an unlooked-for kindness, at the sound of a room full of people all singing the one thing at once. There is not a trace of cold in any of it, and not the least shadow of danger. And if you set that second list down and study it whole, the thread running through it is not hard to find, though it is a surprising one for so old and so blunt an alarm to have caught. It is not warmth, and it is not threat. The single thing those moments hold in common is that they matter, that something of weight is passing through, and the body, by some route we have only begun to follow, has felt the weight of it. Cast your mind back to the last time your own skin lifted and the room around you was not cold. The song, the face, the line read aloud, the thing remembered at the wrong hour of the night. And you will very likely find it was one of these, a moment your life had quietly filed away as one that counted. The same small pull that the freezing dark once dragged out of a frightened animal now answers, more and more as the years lengthen, to beauty and to love and to grief and to the plain, clean shock of something true. What once rose to say danger now rises, as near as it ever comes to saying anything at all, to say this matters. It is worth holding back here, though, because that is a lovely thing to say and very nearly a falsehood. The reflex has not found itself a new calling. Nothing ever shaped it to keep the tally of what moves us, and it does precisely nothing for you when your arm lifts at a symphony, grows you no coat, turns aside no cold, wins you not one thing that a living body could ever be chosen for carrying. It is the same overflow we found waiting inside the music, an alarm that answers not to cold or to threat by name, but to the body's sheer wordless surge of something vast is upon me, with no way on this earth to tell whether that surge first rose out of frost, out of fear, or out of 4 bars climbing into a higher key. It meets a moment of pure meaning with the only gesture it has ever owned. That the moments it now most often catches happen to be the ones that matter most to us is not, in the end, the reflex's doing. It is ours. It is a fact not about the old alarm at all, but about which things in a human life are large enough to drive it that far. And still, teleology set gently aside, no claim pressed, nothing asked of it that it could never give, there is something worth lying still a moment to take in the bare and undeniable shape of the thing. That the very same pull which once stood a coat of hair against a cold older than the mammals themselves now lifts in you when a melody breaks open, or a name is spoken into the dark, or a truth at last comes home. that the oldest warning the body owns has become, in this one late and unlikely animal, the place where its largest moments rise to the surface of the skin and are seen. It serves you in nothing, and it means nothing it was ever shaped to mean. And yet there it is, faithful at the cold and the fright and the beauty all alike. And what it might be to be a creature that carries such a thing all the way from a small, warm animal in the Triassic dark to a person lying awake and quietly undone by a piece of music in a darkened room, is the one thing we have left to sit with. So here is the creature, at the last, you lying in the dark with the day finished behind you and the night settling over the house, listening, halfway already to sleep. And somewhere on you, perhaps even now, perhaps at the next small thing that reaches you, the wave will gather and climb the way it has all your life. The faint lift up the arm, the cool spread across the back, the standing of a coat that is not there. It is the least of all the things your body is doing tonight. It is also, of everything your body is doing tonight, by far the oldest, and we have come all this way down into it, follicle and nerve and muscle and the long, cold dark behind them, so that we might now simply say what it is. What rises on your arm when it comes is not yours alone, and it is not new. It is the near end of a line that runs back without a single break, back past every name in your family, past the first people, past the first creature you would know for kin, the whole way to a small warm animal in a Triassic night 250 million years ago, keeping its own fire alight while the cold-blooded world around it went still. That warmth has been carried ever since from one living body into the next, parent to child, 10,000 times over and more, and not once, in all the dark between that night and this one, has it been let to go cold. It burns in you tonight at the same low and steady rate it first burned in that animal. You are not gazing back across the distance at all of that. You are the near edge of it, the warm, living edge that the whole long reach of it has this very night arrived at. And that, when you let it settle, is the quiet thing the whole of it has been teaching. You are not tailored to the life you are living. Nothing in you was. No hand ever took the measure of the world you would wake into and cut you to fit it. There was nothing reaching toward you at all, no aim and no foresight. What you are you were given, passed on entire and unasked, the whole load, the long line before you happened to be carrying on the day your turn came round, its warmth, its hungers, its terrors, its old and easily startled alarms, the coat it could no longer grow, and the small muscle that goes on reaching for it. To be alive at all is to receive a body suited to worlds already gone, and to live this present one inside it regardless, and to make of that strange and imperfect fit whatever can be made. The lift on your arm is the part of all that you can actually feel, the one window where the whole strange arrangement comes up to the surface and shows itself. Taken honestly, it does nothing. It will not warm you, will not shield you, was never carried this far on your account, or the symphonies. And yet it has become the single place on you where the two longest things you hold come together and break the surface at once. The sheer unthinkable depth of where you have come from, and the entire living reach of what can still move you. When it rises at a piece of music, your most ancient inheritance and your most immediate feeling are doing one and the same thing in one and the same instant on the skin of your forearm. The part of you it would once have been easiest to call useless turns out to be the most truthful thing you own, the place where the whole of your past and the whole of your heart show themselves together, and where neither one is able to pretend. It is worth not making it more than it is, because the not making is itself part of what it gives. The chill is no sign that something is watching, or that your name is known to the dark, or that a path was ever laid down for you to walk. It answers to no plan and keeps no buried meaning. It is, right to the very end, an old reflex caught in a tide it was never shaped to feel. But there is a steadiness that comes of seeing it exactly as it is, and it wears better than any comfort a tidier story could have handed you. You were not set down here on purpose, but carried here, the warm and living edge of a line that has never once broken, wearing the whole of its past in your skin, and able alone of everything that line has ever brought forth, to be moved to tears by a few bars of ordered sound. To be carried here rather than placed here, and to be so moved all the same, is no small inheritance. Held up to the right light, it is the largest one there is. So let it come tonight when it comes, that last faint rising before sleep at a voice you remember, or a turn in the dark you are listening to, or nothing at all that you could name. Let it lift, and know it now for what it is. A coat going up that has long since gone, a muscle keeping faith with a winter that will never reach you again, the oldest and most patient thing you carry, still answering, still reaching, on an ordinary night with nothing anywhere the matter. It has travelled a very long way to rise on your arm and be felt. Let it rise, and then let it go, and let yourself go down with it into sleep, with that small, steady warmth still burning in you precisely where it always has. The warmth that came first, and was carried all this way, and is yours now to hold a little further into the dark before you pass it on.